if I stood down there, no one could see me. I'm not that tall. But I am a Cape Islander, for all of you that don't know. I was born here in the island, I guess on the corner of the Stony Island Road, the South Side Road in Centerville, right there in that little archway. My mother was a Donaldson. Her mother was a Ross from Stony Island. Dad was a Smith, I guess, from Centerville. My grandmother was a Newell. And if you're any of those, we're related. We're related. And I guess we all go back to Archelaus, don't we? Don't we? Yeah. Well, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's just reminiscing just a little bit about Christmas. You'll permit me to do that for a few moments. Most of you probably don't know, we do most of our business with China now. We import salted fish from China, bring it over here to our little factory in Charlesville, and export it into Canada and the US. And I got a lot of Christmas cards from China. Not necessarily cards in the mail, but you get the, the email Christmas cards, and every one of them, without an exception, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We got a lot of Christmas cards from Canada and the US as well, from our customers and suppliers. Only one said Merry Christmas. The rest said Happy Holidays. Happy Holidays. I just wanted to mention that because sometimes, and I can imagine, and we deal with probably 25 or 30 different suppliers and factories in China. And I know some of them this morning. We're all concerned about the weather. And we have to be for our own safety. You know what they're concerned about? How do I get to church this morning? Do I take this street? Do I take this street? Do I park my car here and walk? And they gather 15, 20. If the congregation gets more than 20, we have to split. Because somebody might be watching. Somebody will find out, and somebody don't like it, especially our government. And for the rest of the Chinese, they think that our Christmas is just a little bit weird. They're thinking, what are these Americans and Canadians doing? They're sitting around their living room and they're looking at a tree. All the lights on it, perched in the middle of their living room, and they're eating candy out of a sock. Man, that's weird. That's weird. Then I got to thinking, maybe they think Christmas is weird in another way. A virgin teenager becomes pregnant and gives birth to a baby boy that will actually grow up and change the course of history. A few shepherds enjoying a quiet evening on the hills outside of a little hamlet, and they start talking to angels. Man, that's weird. You see, to those that don't understand, that's pretty weird stuff. Then I got to thinking that maybe Christmas is not just about the stable, not just about the stars and the manger scene and the angels. Maybe it's just not all about the turkey and the stuffing and the presents under the tree. Maybe it's just a little bit weird to a lot of people that God, the eternal God, would choose a feeding trough as a backdrop to the manger scene. As the mystery of the Godhead unfolds and God becomes a human being. You see, maybe it's because we've got so used to the story that we've overlooked the mystery of it all. We forgot about the simplicity of the plan that the eternal God would one day become the Christ child, Emmanuel, God with us. And this man, this God-man, would die on an old Roman cross. And because he died, we can have life and live eternally with him. Amen? Amen. That's pretty weird stuff to a lot of people. Well, that's Christmas. If we roll back ahead our clocks in just less than 12 hours now, it'll be not Merry Christmas, but what will it be? Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Another year. Another year. If you have your Bibles this morning, turn to Ephesians chapter 5. I just want to read a couple of verses and speak from there for a few moments. I would take mine, but see, the problem is when you get old like me, you can't really see good. So I got on a little bigger print. Here are my notes. And I'll read it first from the King James Version, and we'll read from the NIV, because it brings out, both versions brings out a different truth about the same passage. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 15. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. Notice verse 16. Redeeming, I want you to notice that word, we'll talk about it. Redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Verse 17, wherefore be ye not unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. The NIV in the same portion, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. And notice verse 16, King James said, redeeming the time. Verse 16 in the NIV says, making the most of every opportunity. We'll talk about the similarities and the differences between those two translations, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. You know, as we face 2018, we don't know what the future holds. None of us do. And at least for me, I'm kind of glad it's that way. We worry enough as it is of what's went on in the past and what's going on now. And I don't want to worry about things in the future that I really don't know about, and somehow I really don't have much control over. God told the children of Israel in Joshua's day, you have not passed this way before. You see, none of us has walked the path that's ahead of us. The coming days, the coming months, 2018 is all brand new territory. It's a new pathway for all of us. But we realize that time, and every time the calendar rolls, December 31st, January the 1st, every time the camera rolls, the calendar rolls, we understand that time is passing. The time in the past, 2017, the door is closed. What was. You can't go back and change not one single word that you said in 2017. You can't undo any deed, good or bad, that was done in 2017. The door is closed. Time has been dismissed. And yet we open the door, 2018, time is just beginning. I'm going to make a statement, and I want to see how many agree with me. And the statement goes pretty much like this. You will always find time to do what you want to do. Is that a true statement? Nod your head. This up and down is yes. This way is no. Somebody asks you, can you drop by next week? Let's have a little chat. And we say, if I have time. Do you want to go over to the Causeway? Do you want to go to Tim's tomorrow morning? If I have time. And on and on and on and on it goes. Well, you know what? We all have time. It's a matter of what we do with our time. We complain about being so busy. Oh, I'm busy, I'm too busy, and the older we get, the busier we get. No, we kind of slow down a little bit. The kids are busy, but they don't seem to know what busy is. They're just playing and having fun. And as we get to the age of maturity, we just can't find enough time to do what we have to do. You know, I got to thinking the other day that God is He's a very fair God. Some of us He's given more health to than others. Some He's given far more talent than others. I'd love to play the piano, but my fingers, they don't work as good as my mind wants to work. Pastor John was joking with me just sent me a text message a couple of nights ago. And I was watching hockey, and I kind of made a few sassy remarks to him, as I always do, about, you know, yeah, John, I'll read your text message after I get done watching the Bruins win the game. Of course, he's a Detroit Red Wings fan, in case you don't already know, and he got a new, and when he comes back, you want to, John, show us your new jersey, a Gordie Howe Detroit Red Wings jersey for Christmas. And we got kind of teasing each other. He said, Roger, all you have to do is preach. You can sing a song, a solo, if you want to, and then in brackets he put, but I wouldn't recommend that. He knows me. You see, I don't have the talent to sing. God has given some of you more credit cards. I was going to say wealth, but credit cards than others. And you have the ability to pay your credit cards at the end of the month. Somebody else pays mine, so I don't worry about that. But God is very fair in the fact that He has given us all the same amount of time. He didn't give some 30 hours in a day and the others 10. He didn't do that. He gave us all 24 hours a day. He even gave our Prime Minister 24 hours a day because he's got to run the country. I won't make any comments of how he's doing, but he's got the same amount of time as we do. God is a very fair God. And all of us today, we have the ability, we have the opportunity to do with our time whatever we want to do. Yes, we have dreams, we have visions, we have goals. We have a purpose going into 2018. But we also have an excuse. Well, I'll get it done if I have enough time. I got to thinking too this week that time is far more valuable than money is. But it's like money because both of them, time and money, can be invested. They both can be spent. But it's different than money actually is because while money actually can be saved, you can't save time. You can't put it in a bottle and put it on your shelf and use it whenever you want. It's not like that. You can earn more money, but you can't earn more time. Time, if you don't use it, you lose it. Money, you can save it. You don't time. If you don't use it, you lose it, and it's gone. You can't get it back to use it again whenever you want to. So, Scripture tells us, and the Apostle Paul, he tells us to, what was the word we use, King James Version, verse number 16 of Ephesians chapter 5, redeeming the time. The word redeeming can be translated buying up the time, purchasing the time. In other words, we have this moment of time that we can kind of grasp in our hands. We can kind of purchase it, and we can use it to do with it whatever we chose to do. In other words, God is saying, take the opportunity, and when it arises, make the most of it. You ever come to a point in your life where you walk away from something? Something is said, maybe in passing, maybe you're at the grocery store, and somebody makes a comment as you meet them in the grocery aisle, pushing your carts along, maybe at the checkout, maybe over at Tim's. And you get home and you think, that was an opportunity for me to say something, to lend a listening ear, to kind of connect with an old friend or a neighbor, and you missed it. And then you get thinking, yeah, I missed it. But that moment is gone. You can't get it back. It's like water under the bridge. It never returns to its original spot. You can't get it back again. So make the most, the apostle is saying, of every opportunity. So let me ask you a question this morning. What are your goals? What are your goals and your dreams? What do you anticipate is going to happen in your life, in the life of your fellow believers and your friends and your neighbors this year? What are you looking forward to? What will each day of 2018 bring? And we think about that. And then on the other side of our little mind, we think about the circumstances of life. You know, it's very easy to get pessimistic. I was just watching a little bit of the news last night, and I was watching the demonstration in Iran of the people rising up. Most of it in peaceful demonstrations, but it always breaks out into violence of being under the oppression of a government that we know nothing about. And you think of those people. You think of what Donald calls Mr. Kim in North Korea, Kim the Rocket Man. He's playing the game when we was kids, and you played it as well, King of the Mountain. Who can be the greatest? Who can get on top? Who can dominate? Who can control the rest of the environment? And it seems like the little country of North Korea wants to hold the world at ransom because he wants to play King of the Mountain. We can think this morning of the United Nations kind of upset with America for recognizing Jerusalem as a capital of Israel. Well, by the way, it's been a capital for 3,000 or 4,000 years. The rest of the world just hasn't woke up to that fact yet. So it's easy to get pessimistic. It's easy to get under the circumstances of what's going to happen in 2018. The Apostle Paul was kind of used to the circumstances that he was under. I want to read, if you want to flip to it, you can, Philippians chapter 3, a couple of more verses. Philippians chapter 3 and verse 12. And Paul simply says this, not that I've already obtained, not that I have reached the summit yet, or have already been made perfect, but this is what he says, but I press on to take hold of that which Christ Jesus took hold for me. Brothers, I do not consider myself to have taken a hold of it. But notice what he says. But this one thing I do. What was on his mind? Let's assume it was New Year's Day. And this is what the apostle had to say. Forgetting what is behind and straining for what is ahead. forgetting what is behind in 2017, with all of its joys, all of its heartaches, and all of its sorrow, and all of its happiness, and all of its pleasures. Let's forget it and press on toward the goal, the aim, the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. What did Paul want to do? You know, he had a lot to get him under the circumstances. He persecuted the church. In fact, he had the authority to gather up the Christians and just put them to death. Now he's writing as a believer in Jesus Christ. He could have very well said, "Oh, wretched me." In fact, he did. He said, "I'm the chief of sinners." But you know what? He didn't dwell on that. He said, "I got to forget all of that stuff." And some of you, under the sound of my voice this morning, you can go back to the days when you didn't know Christ, when he wasn't your Lord and Savior. And you can remember those days. And you say, oh my, look what I've done. Look what I've said. Look at the mistakes that I've made. And what does the apostle tell us? What does he tell us? Forget the things that are behind, that happened last year, that happened 20 years ago, that happened 30 years ago. Let's forget it, and let's look ahead at what God has planned for us and for the church in the years to come. Amen? Amen. Amen. You see, the circumstances is kind of the things that keep us prisoners to the past. It keeps us sort of kind of crippled up. It keeps us boxed in, and we can't really kind of expand our horizon, our vision, our dreams and our goals of what God wants for us, because we're so consumed, and our mind is so consumed of what has happened in the past. So let's forget about the things that are behind us, and let us stretch our imagination of what God can do with us and for us in the year to come. Well, there's certain things that's going to happen, I think, if we're going to press on. We have to know the times that we're living in. There was a group of men in Joshua's day in the Old Testament, and Joshua brings them all before him one day, and there's captains and kind of the heads of different departments, and one of those groups of men were called the children of Issachar. And he said about those, the children of Issachar, the priests of Issachar, are those that know the time. They understood the times and the condition and the cultures of what was happening in their day. You see, they had their thumb on the pulse of the culture and of what was happening in their day. I think we all can agree that we're living in kind of a turning point in history. The world in which we live is fundamentally different than the world that most of us, my age and up, grew up in. The surveyors indicate to us, and I've been reading a bit about that lately, that the culture in the Western world, Canada and the US in particular, is redefining itself every 5 years. Now you think about this for a moment. And some of you seniors, mature, I don't want to call you seniors, some of you mature people, believers this morning, can identify with this. In your grandfather's day, in your parents' day, in your great-grandfathers, it was the horse and wagon. It was the family cow out in the barn. It was a vegetable garden, which you actually took a shovel and a hoe and you went out and planted it in the springtime, and you dug out the potatoes in the fall. And that went on for years and decades and for generations. Nothing ever changed. But think about it today. They tell us that our culture is redefining itself, not every 100 years, not every 50 years, but every 3 or 4 years. It's changing. So the culture we're living in today, by the year 2020, 2 years from now, will seem like that was way back in the dark ages. Our culture is changing. We're experiencing radical change in society. The world has changed. Sociologists will tell us that, looking back over history, there was a migration from the countryside to the bigger towns and bigger cities. You still see that in places like China. I spent over 2 months there this year, 6 or 7 different trips, a week or 2 at a time, just in business, and I see that. The factory workers with 800 to 1,000 people working in their factories, 80% of the people come from 4 and 5 hour train rides away, out into what we would call the boonies. And they come into the cities to find work, and they live in dormitories. They work 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, and they have a common eating area. And with, I think the 6th of February, they go home for 3 weeks. And that's their vacation of the year. That's when they see their families, their loved ones. And 60% of them never come back to the factory. They go somewhere else. The migration from the countryside into the big cities. The disappearance of the old traditional ways, the family farm, the country garden, the cow in the barn that was so prominent here in my father's and grandfather's day. I get to reminisce sometimes when I see some old pictures, and when I listen to Dad, which will turn 93 in a couple of months, and my sisters will bring him down to the island, and Linda and Joan and Judy, they'll say, yeah, we went for a ride on Cape Island. We went down, you know, all the way around the Circle 8, and Dad was pointing out, well, so that old house over there, yeah, when he grew up, like 80, 85 years ago, so-and-so lived there. And they're gone now. You see, things are changing, and society is changing. And we've moved through the kind of agricultural age, through the industrial age, and now we're in they call it the information age, when every kid over 5 years old has got to have a brand new cell phone, so they can be in touch on Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter and all of the different ways of communicating. And I understand that 80% of teenagers, if they wanted to visit their friends, would actually have to get on an airplane and fly somewhere to meet them, because their friends are out there in what do you call it? Cyberspace, yeah. I knew the space, I couldn't get the cyber part. Thanks for helping us, old preacher out. Clark Coden, a church consultant, wrote just a couple of years ago, and he says it well when he wrote, at the start of the 21st century, the church in North America finds itself in a very different place than what it was 50 years ago. You see, 50 years ago, the church in America and Canada as well, and Cape Island as well, was a privileged place in our culture. Most people went to church. People respected the church. If you don't believe me, ask your grandparents. They'll tell you that. And culture listened to the church. Even the politicians wanted to be on the side of the church, because that's where they got their votes. The church was very much the center of public life. You drive the communities and the Atlantic provinces, you'll notice them, church after church, almost one in every community. It was the center of the community. It was needed because if you wanted to go to church, you had to what? You had to walk. You couldn't get in your car. A few people had horses and wagons, and that's why they were there. And it was the center of culture, the center of community life. But today, that world no longer existed. It has been said that a church that is married to the culture of one age becomes the widow of the culture of the next age. Why? Because culture changes. And the question is, has the church? All you have to do is drive around, and you'll find the answer to that question. You see, the culture of our communities 50 years ago and the churches of our community 50 years ago finds itself struggling now to relate to the culture of the same community. I wonder if we listen. I wonder if we understand. I wonder if I understand what I'm actually talking about. 7 or 8 years ago, I was ordained a Baptist minister, and I don't hold that against me. My wife is a Wesleyan, believe me, and I am too. I was ordained a Baptist minister, and I was not necessarily told, but informed of the 450-something Baptist churches in Atlantic Canada that within the next generation, 75% of them, the doors will be closed. Now you think about it. 100 years ago, they were the center of their community. 50 years ago, almost the center of the community, and today, the small country church is struggling. Have we ever stopped to ask ourselves, why is it? Has the gospel changed? No. It should never change. The message of God's grace and of God's forgiveness and his willingness to accept whosoever will is still open. They can still come. But what about the way the church relates to the community? Maybe that's got to change. Maybe that's got to change. You see, we want to hear the old story. We want to tell somebody we're still all safe. We're secure from all of the alarms that's going around us, that things are changing. But guess what? Time changes things. You see, the challenge that the church today is facing is, how do we respond to the changing times? One thing that I've discovered is that the churches which serve the needs of the communities in which they're in are the ones that survive and grow. And the churches that focus on themselves, their needs, our own needs, our own concerns, our own way of doing things, are those that wither and die. You see, it's not about how can we avoid change. It's almost like saying, how can we stop the clock from ticking and the calendar from rolling over to a new day? You see, it's not about being comfortable. It's not about preserving our past. It's about being grateful for those that have gone on before to bring us to the point where we are now, and accepting the fact that where we are now is a good starting place to where we can be at the end of 2018. Can I hear an amen? Amen. If you don't agree, just don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. But I know you do. I know you do. You see, Cape Sable Island, I believe, is a mission field that's ready for the harvest. Go tell it on the mountain. We should. We should. Go tell it in China, and I get the privilege of doing that and speaking to individuals when I'm there, and I've met some very, very lovely Christians that are on fire for the Lord, that know how to express their faith. And when you talk to somebody about Jesus in China, their eyes kind of opened up and, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And you mention it here. I don't want to hear that stuff. You know, I've heard all of that before. You know, go tell it on the mountain somewhere else. So our communities are a mission field, and they're right outside of our doors. You see, I'll tell you why. Because we have so much, and we're so privileged, and we're so blessed. And anything you want, you can go into the store, into the supermarkets, and into the shopping malls and take out your credit card. You don't even have to have a penny in your pocket, and you can almost have whatever you want. You want a new car, you want a new truck, you want a new four-wheeler, you just go and buy it. We'll make a down payment, and it will pay for it as we go. And with that affluence, I think people more and more are realizing, and they're experiencing the fact that we've been there and we've done that, and what's next? What's next? And with that comes a sort of dissatisfaction. What is the meaning of all of this? What is the meaning of life? And see, without Jesus Christ in your heart and in your life, life really doesn't have much of a meaning. It's incredible to think of the spiritual crisis and the vacuum that this culture is living in. And God has left us, you and I as individual believers, and the church in general, and the church in West Head, to be the lighthouse, to be the avenue of expressing the love of an eternal God that was willing to give his only Son, Jesus Christ, to die on a cross, to not only rescue us from a lost eternity, but to give us a life that has meaning and that has an everlasting home when we leave this world. As a church and as individuals this morning, we have to understand that the past is the past. The door is closed. The calendar is taken down, put away. It's a souvenir. And 2018 is a brand new day. It's a brand new opening. It's a brand new doorway into the future. And we must, as the apostle exhorts us, press on to win the prize that Jesus Christ has laid up for us one day in glory. Can we wake up this morning to the realities of a new year? Time has passed. It's a dawning of a new day. Can we take and appreciate the opportunity that God has given us of making a difference in our communities in the days ahead? Redeem the time. What does it mean? Be aware of the opportunities and don't miss them. There's a neighbor of yours. I don't know their name, but you do. That would appreciate a listening ear. And some of you are saying, but I'm really not good at carrying on a conversation. You don't have to. You know what I have discovered? And it doesn't matter where I go in this whole world. And I've been to about 35 countries. I've done business in 22 of them. I don't care whether they're Chinese, whether they're Spanish. I don't care what language they speak. And I don't even have to understand the language. You know what they want? They want somebody that they know is listening. Somebody said to me not long ago, going to visit some loved ones in the funeral home, Roger, I don't know how you could do that. You're just so good at it. I'm not. I don't know what to say. And you know what I tell them? You don't have to say anything. Just be there. There's a friend. There's a neighbor. And God has given you the opportunity of listening. And when you listen with your heart, something happens between you and them, and they understand that you're a person that cares about them. And as the door begins to open and the barriers break down, it's then and only then that you can share the love of Jesus Christ with them. In my own experience, you don't even have to bring up the topic, because eventually they do. They do. God has given us an opportunity of reaching out, of redeeming the time in the days and weeks ahead of us. And maybe this morning, I don't know who you are. I don't know your heart. And maybe this morning, this is your opportunity. Maybe you don't know Christ. And today, the last day of 2017, would be a good day. A good day. And I say that because God has not promised you tomorrow. It's a good day. Right where you're sitting, just to bow your heart and say, Jesus, I've heard all about you. I've been coming to church for years, but I don't know you. But I do know that you died on the cross over 2,000 years ago for me. And I do know, because I've heard it before, that all I have to do is trust in what you have done for me. And I do know that if I asked you, you will forgive me of my sins. And you'll come into my heart. And you'll change me. And I'll be a son or a daughter in Christ for all eternity. Maybe that's your prayer this morning. Maybe that should be your prayer. And for those that know Jesus, may this year be the year that we will seize every opportunity to share the love of Christ in word, if necessary, or in deed, that others will come to know our blessed Lord as Lord and Savior. God bless you.